начнем где-то через 5 минут, ждем, пока все подключатся. Okay, we will start in 5 minutes, so we are waiting for the other participants.
Perfect. And would I be able to share my screen to showcase the PowerPoint?
Yep, I think you can. Can you try it?
All right. Can you see my screen?
Um, no.
What about now?
Yep.
Oh,
Now that's okay. So 5 minutes and we will start.
perfect.
So, hello everyone. Всем привет. Сегодняшняя лекция у нас пройдет на английском языке. Надеюсь, что для всех участников будет комфортно. Сначала скажу на русском, затем перейду на английский. So, I will start in Russian, but I will speak in English later. Сегодня, ребят, будет лекция от партнеров программы Red Bull Basement Казахстан, компании PICT, с участием спикера Аптина Агагаляна, который является кофаундером и CTO компании PICT. So today we will have a workshop with the participation of Red Bull Basement Kazakhstan partners, picked company. And today speaking for you will be Abtin Aghagolian, co-founder and CTO picked company. Сегодняшняя тема у нас будет посвящена AI, искусственному интеллекту, который сейчас на данный момент является, будем говорить, достаточно хайповой и нужной темой. И затем у нас будет презентация от компании Red Bull по Red Bull Basement, потому что вот-вот у нас подходят сроки для дедлайна подачи заявок. So today our theme is about AI. It's a very important theme, so I think that it will be very interesting for our participants. Now we have the lecture, and then we will discuss about Red Bull Basement Kazakhstan. So, Abtin, I think that you can start.
Hello, thank you very much for your introduction. If you could confirm that you can see my screen, I would begin from here.
I think that it's cool. So,
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So the discussion and this keynote today would be about ethics by design in the age of immersive AI. And particularly, I'm talking about the emphasis of not building it right. I will go into not building it wrong, and I will go into the details of what the space is, why it's important, what are the risks, mechanisms, and a potential solution to it. So, tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Dr. Abtin Aghagolian. As introduced, I'm co-founder and CTO of PICT. My own background has been in immersive AI, augmented reality, spatial computing, and geospatial anchoring. And I'm personally very interested as well as concerned about the ethical aspects of how these technologies are built, how we can build ethically by design, and the movement of tech for good in a time that is more important than ever. I have had the experience of launching startups in different countries, including United Kingdom, France, Russia, United States, as well as Far East, Japan, and South Korea. And in this path, I have worked with brands such as Red Bull, Burger King, in the beloved Kazakhstan. I've worked with Kairat, Digital, Almaty, and so on. So, what is the next computing paradigm that has got everybody worried as this immersive age? So if we go back, um, technology was brought into the office through an evolution of the shrinking in the size of computers and the existence of desktops. From desktop, we have the dot-com boom, and then we moved into the smart age where the technology came into our pockets. Now, this paradigm is taking a very evolutionary step of not only being available to us, but being in the environment in which we live in. The environment becomes that technology itself. And to put it into scale, the mixed reality market is predicted to reach 300 billion by 2030. And if we were in person, I would ask you to show hands of how many of you guys have used virtual reality headsets, how many of you own a virtual reality headset, or perhaps use augmented reality over your phones. But since this is happening virtually, I want you to think about the time that you have used it and how many people you know who own these devices. From more complicated and advanced ones such as the Oculus Quest and the Vision Pro to things like the Meta Quest. And the stat says that 171 million people use virtual reality, which is a large number. And as you know, the growth of these technologies move exponentially. So we are at a point where this is becoming we are going to approach the critical point of this becoming a mainstream technology. So what is this immersive AI? Immersive AI is the cross section of where artificial intelligence, spatial computing meets continuous environmental sensing. These core technologies, in combination with GIS, geographical information systems, create immersive artificial intelligence, a underlying technology that is used for physical AI, but also for means of future consumption and interaction. So all these headsets that I mentioned use a degree of tracking that is quite interesting. This is beyond the metadata that existed prior to this point of likes, interactions, clicks. But this is the 6 degrees of movement in your head positioning. These are hand motion and gesture recognitions. These are your gaze patterns of where you're looking, the facial expressions, the voice, and how this voice and tonage changes with all the sentiment and temperature data that can be derived from that, as well as environmental mapping, which is the follow-up to surface detection, object detection, to now being able to have a complete understanding of the space in which the user and the device are in. Unlike smartphones, immersive systems observe where you look, how you move, what you interact with, and what you pay attention to continuously. Now, please pay attention to the term continuous, because up until this point, again, everything, all of these data points and the metadata were on the active aspect of the interaction. But suddenly we also have the passive aspect of the user just existing within the space. So how is this different, and why I think this is such a big revolution is because immersive AI mediates perception itself. So if you have a presence in the space, that presence in itself is being mediated through this new layer of technology. And this amplifies and impacts in both ways. So it is proven through research, neuroscience research, by mapping the activity of individuals' brains, that the mind has a growing difficulty in telling what is real and what is not through this high level of presence. Users respond psychologically as if virtual events are genuinely real. And this is great. This is very good, because if we can fool the brain, things such as therapy, things such as scenario training, things such as education becomes a lot cheaper, a lot more accessible, and also enhanced to a great degree. But this is also a two-sided sword. This double-edged sword can also be negative, because what form of cyberbullying, what form of negativity that existed on the digital layer through online communities and whatnot can feel very, very real in our space, in our very sense of physical security. So how does this come to be, and why is this so powerful? Comes down to the sensor explosion. As you know, the more data we have in this age of AI that we're in, the more accurate models we can build. And in this immersive era, this amount of data is significantly greater. To put it into perspective, a Meta Quest Pro sensor has 5 internal cameras for spatial mapping and tracking, eye tracking sensors capturing gaze patterns and pupil dilation, facial expression tracking, detecting micro expression in real time, as well as biometric signal capture as a byproduct of continuous use, which is a derived set of data from the previous sensors and metadata. Motion data. So I'm going to focus not on previous technologies that also exist in this layer, but what capability is here that makes it powerful and yet concerning is that motion data is a biometric, not a fingerprint. I'm not talking about a pupil scan, but just the way our hands and our head moves. And for a long time, it was thought that hand and head movement is something very unique to individuals and often a very difficult set of movements to predict. And yet recent studies show that there is a 95% degree of accuracy in user identification just for 5 minutes of usage of these devices. Less than 5 minutes of data is required, just a brief session, to create a persistent biometric fingerprint of who this person is without any of the other identifications and identifiers and signs that was previously required to build a user ID around. A Stanford study demonstrates that VR motion tracking can uniquely identify users, meaning even anonymous data sets can still expose individuals through movement patterns alone. And now, please pay very close attention to this. I'm going to go into more details, but for you to have this on the side of your mind is that when we talk about privacy and whatever regulations exist to protect individuals, the toughest ones are in the European Union with the User Protection Acts, with the AI Acts. In the UK, there is the GDPR. All of these talk about the data that belongs to that user, but drive data is something that is the product of that company's exercise of algorithm and practice, and that is something that belongs to them, leaving a gray area of the motion data biometric being yours or the company's. So what does this mean at massive scale? Identification is suddenly so much easier without sitting people down, scanning them, taking their fingerprints, their pupils, just how they move. Putting this back into the VR case, in a study of 55,000 people, 94% were identified accurately. And when this data of the 5 minute that was discussed earlier has been reduced to only 10 seconds, this degree of accuracy falls down to only 73%. Even a short VR session generates enough data to reliably identify who you are without any account, logging, or personal information. Please let that sink in terms of what I just told you about the privacy. And an aspect that is added onto this, because while we're talking about motion biometric, and one might argue that this is related to, okay, only people who are wearing these devices. If you can see me and you can see how this head moves, how these hands move, how react to certain different signs that are thrown at me, then a similar set of identification can take place. So this is much deeper than what might assume of just saying, okay, who is this user? Who is this customer? Who is this individual? This provides a degree of assessment on that individual that never existed before. Immersive sensor data doesn't just reveal identity. It exposes the full spectrum of who you are. Platforms may unintentionally collect what amounts to medical and psychological data, far more sensitive than any clicks or likes. Now, the way you interact, and I'm sure all of you have this experience that you go on Google or some other search engine or social media, search something, and then things keep popping up, or something that you might not have necessarily searched but is related to your interest in that moment in time. Now let's take this, and that's just from your clicks and likes, and now let's combine this with your behavioral analysis, with your psychometric analysis, with your neurological and health analysis, and think about the ways in which users can be manipulated to then react in a certain way. Personality and emotional state behavioral patterns are mapped to psychological traits and real-time emotional responses, movements, signatures linked to neurological conditions, and mental health indicators. All of this are very good things in the right hand. And the point, again, of this keynote is not to say this is a bad thing, it's to say why it is important to focus on this matter being built in the right way. Previously, a technique that has been used to protect the individuals under a lot of these regulatory frameworks have been anonymization. So for those of you who have built software, particularly who have built consumer-facing software, you know that sharing of data with third party by law is required to happen under anonymization. And for long, that has been a protocol by the regulators to individual users. Now, that anonymization might not work anymore, as has been iterated so far in this keynote, is that I don't need to know who you are, your name. I don't need to know your social security number. I don't need to have your email or account ID. All I need to have is a few seconds of how your hands and your head moves, the way you gesture. So techniques that have been suggested by researchers in this area have been to reduce the resolution of the feed from these sensors and cameras, to reduce the frame rate, and to add noise. And I'm here to tell you, with the growth of AI, that is not working anymore. Reducing spatial precision of motion doesn't work. Dropping temporal granularity of movement data doesn't work. Injecting artificial randomness into the data stream doesn't work. Users could still be identified near perfect accuracy. The data is inherently identifying. Traditional anonymization is insufficient. And for you to have an idea about it, by default, these machine learning algorithms that have come to make the modern AI are predictive algorithms. These predictive algorithms bridge the gap between the frames that you remove to lower the resolution, bridge the gap between the frame rates that you drop, and particularly about noise. Modern foundational models have a great understanding of what can be to predict what cannot be. So when we add noise, take the example of my arm. If the noise is my arm moves backward a basic example. You know that my arm only has a range of motion. So separating the noise from the actual context is not a difficult thing for the model. Thus, anonymization is not a solution anymore. So what works? Are we doomed? And I'm here to tell you, no, we're not. How much of this data exists? What is the scale that we're looking at? What is the magnitude of this? Traditional internet was built on kilobytes per hour. How many clicks you do, what pages you visit. Smartphone brought a new era, and that took us into the megabytes per hour. Even your scrolling could have been used as a mean for psychometric data. I remember about 6, 7 years ago, I was working on a ad aggregator. And as you know, ad aggregators are result-driven performance marketing of the modern age, at least for that time. And the more you accurately you can understand the state of a user, you can talk about, okay, when do I show them what? And the way an individual scrolls or where they put their thumb on the screen would be a signifier of when you're in a good mood. Now, in the headset era and the mixed reality era, combined with artificial intelligence, we're talking about gigabytes of data per hour, thousands of data points every second. This is great. I mean, if you are a data scientist, if you are a data engineer, if you're a artificial intelligence builder as an individual or a company, more data. So perfect. A single mixed reality headset generates gigabytes of spatial data per hour and thousands of motion data per second, fundamentally different category of behavioral data. Unlike clicks or likes, this data reflects continuous embodied human activity. How you move, breathe, hesitate, and attend to the world around you. The infrastructure to handle, store, and monetize this data is being built right now without adequate safeguards. So why, when I was offered to give a keynote and this esteemed event, why I chose to talk about this is not to come here and tell you, build these AIs and this is great. If you're here, probably you're interested and you're building something. I'm here to tell you why it's important to build it right. And I'm here to tell you why there is even economical interest in building it right. The social risk of this immersive world is exponentially greater. Immersive environments have documented serious harassment problems. We have seen this from the earlier days of these digital twins, especially on the gamified scene, which have naturally had a much faster adoption rate with harassment reports on things like Roblox and so on. And that is still on a screen, not in a geospatial context believed by our mind to be real. Text-based harassment, where words on a screen, you look at it and you understand that this is something that once I close the screen is away. But this immersive harassment has a fundamental issue, and that is my brain cannot distinguish. My brain is fooled in thinking it is real, and thus it cannot distinguish. This illusion of physical proximity, threatening gestures, voices, are experienced as if it's actually happening to you. The presence effect. So if you recall, I described this digital paradigm, this next revolution in the world of technology, as immersive AI being a mediator of presence itself. And the emotional and psychological reactions leave a long-lasting effect beyond what has been seen. Users don't just see, they experience and they feel. This is precisely what makes mixed reality so powerful for therapy and training, as mentioned earlier. If you're looking at it for a good thing, I've actually been talking about a friend who's building a tool to help diagnose dementia using these technologies. This is great. I mean, we have an opportunity like never before. If you are a doctor and you're trying to practice surgery, you can have as many mock surgeries without cutting anyone open. If you're an engineer, learning how to assemble a precision process, you can do it as many times before the real thing. But then on the bad side is when internet and the dark side of humanity, which unfortunately these models also have been echoing, takes place. The same neurological mechanisms that make VR therapeutic make VR-based abuse deeply traumatic. Now, this has been a micro view. Let us zoom out. Let us look at it from a macro view. The world and the industries and economies that make the world go around have been built on means of extraction. Most digital platforms are built on behavioral advertising and data monetization. Platforms that you use, from the social media, from your search engine, from the games you play, utility tools that you use. I mean, this is the reason why a lot of these tools are provided to us for free. But in reality, nothing is free. In 2019, I had a startup called Elios World, which focused on redirecting advertisement benefits to the people who are affected by it, because these ads are intrusive. Nobody chooses to watch an ad. You're using a service, it comes towards you, and you're forced to watch it. As Stephen Paul in his book Words Are Weapons says, once something is read or heard, cannot be unheard. And this leaves an impact, whether consciously or on your unconscious or subconscious. What we're talking about today is a $600 billion industry. And now this was still built on the era of likes, clicks, scrolls. If immersive platforms, these future platforms that are gaining momentum, adapt the same model, the economic incentives is clear. Maximize data extraction, moving from megabyte per hour model to the gigabyte. Today's internet tracks clicks, searches, locations, and purchase intent. Tomorrow's immersive platform tracks gaze. Where am I looking on this screen? It would know if you are looking at me as you're listening to this keynote or not. Neurological signals. I don't know if you're like me. I remember when I was in university, I would sit in a lecture and daydream. It would be able to track these motions and understand, and how my mood changes and the physical behavior. Traditionally, software companies have been selling data. I'm going to give you one example, and that is precisely not about the world that we saw, but the world that we are in this revolution with. So traditionally, companies would gather these data, and there is a massive market online for these data, precisely to fuel the accuracy of these models as we grow, and then use it for prediction to sell stuff. But now this data is going to include your attention and information about you in a biological level. If you're familiar with a company called Niantic, Niantic formed a partnership with a very long-standing and popular IP called Pokemon. I'm sure we all have some memories with Pokemon. Even if you were not a Pokemon fan, we all know what it is. They launched a game called Pokemon Go. Actually, the company pick that I have works on a similar mechanism. And I will tell you about that later. But Pokemon Go, as you would go around with your phone, with the AR camera, collect these different pieces of 3D assets that are anchored in a situation. All of this game, AR, great fun, one of the biggest successes in AR history so far. But this company was later sold to a different company. And while this deal took place, its data was shared with some of the AI companies in the defense sector. Now, I don't want to make assumptions, but you can probably guess for yourself what that can lead to. The information about the individual who's playing, the information about anybody who's been in this camera frame, as well as the cities in which this has been played. So let's look back. I mean, I just gave an example of what happened recently with this, but I don't know if anything bad has actually happened. But I want to talk to you about a few things that we do know have happened. The history that is not even from that long ago shows that large data systems built without safeguards are eventually misused, often at catastrophic scale. Immersive AI doesn't just repeat these mistakes, it multiplies them. And if for nothing, just for the sheer magnitude of data that is included. I cannot see you, so I cannot guess the age range of this audience. But if you guys did use Facebook, you know that it was the thing and we were all on it and all of our interactions and the amount of data that we put on it. And later on, a company, an affiliate of Facebook named Cambridge Analytica, used the data of 87 million Facebook profiles to harvest and weaponize and influence democratic elections. You might not believe what I'm going to tell you next, but the countries in which this took place were not some far-off countries without awareness of these technologies. This had effect, and there was lawsuits and even congressional hearings in United States, in United Kingdom, as well as several other countries. Another case of this was Strava. So if you're a runner, most likely you use Strava or another tool which tracks where you run. This allows the company to extract a lot of information about your movement and pattern of it to predict where you work, where you are. Now, if this individual turn out to be a person of particular interest, then it can also identify those places. As is the case of Strava, heat maps inadvertently reveal classified military-based locations worldwide. Now, with the case of Strava, so the first case was about clicks and what we shared and likes and our friends. The case of Strava is geographical information, a location-based service. Now, in the world of immersive AI, we're talking a combination of the metadata about the clicks and likes, a combination of the geographics with spatial data of scanning this entire place, of scanning the user's reactions and the way people look, as well as the derived psychological impact. Location tracking scandals have also been quite common. Location data has been sold to basically anybody who's interested. And as I said, the market is massive for it. Now, please let this sink and connect the dots for yourself of what this would look like in the world that is to come. Inevitably, technological growth and advancement is something that is tied into the economy, making more money, having the stocks go up. Technology is very expensive to build it. You need a lot of investment. These investments influence the companies that are building it. Recent cases of this, one could point to OpenAI, ChatGPT, the big feud between Sam Altman and Elon Musk. And the whole idea that a company comes and says, I'm going to do this for good, and then there's so much money, and the investors have put a lot of money into it, and then it goes from a for-profit to from a non-profit to a for-profit company. And this has been the case. And on the side that the people who are trying to protect us, or at least the representative bodies of these societies amongst the regulators and authorities, are always behind. They are not the ones who are building these technologies. So ethics so far has been an aftermath. We have had the case of Cambridge Analytica, and only after that, the regulators have come and said, okay, why is this happening? And how is it even possible? What I'm proposing is particularly for the audience that is here, is for founders like myself and like you, whether you are a founder already or you want to start a startup, is for builders, for the individuals who are enthusiastic into the space and are building little microservices, products, and tools. Or if you're just interested and are a user, to be a conscious user. The way to do this is to build that ethics into the algorithms. Immersive systems require proactive ethical design, safeguards embedded into the architecture before launch, not bolted on after harm occurs. And I want to make something clear. Please, do not let this be a case where I paint a doomsday picture and all these powerful companies have this data and what can we do about it? The truth of the society, at least in a capitalistic society, is that individuals have the agency to make choice, and we can choose what to use and what not to use. So by building something that protects the users, protects the individuals, that in itself is a massive market. We've already seen cases of this in the search engine industry, for example, given that you've had major, powerful players who've been indexing the entire web, and suddenly you had a search engine that comes out and says, I will not sell your data, and for what ad I will show you, I'll plant trees. I'm sure you've heard of the company Sequoia. So how does the ethics by design take effect into the immersive AI world? I see it as a three-pillar layer. One is privacy by architecture, embedded data protection into protocols and system designs. Incentive alignment, design economic models that reward protection, not extraction. And transparency, make reality versus augmentation clear and explainable to users. This is obviously easier said than done, but I'm gonna share my own view on this and how, as a founder, how as an engineer, and how as an enthusiast in this space, I am building the next phase of my company, Picked, which, by the way, has access to all of these data, which I mentioned to you. I am an AR company. I am an immersive geospatial company. To do it in a way to protect individuals, and I do this because I care, but I also do this because I think there's money to be made. There's money to be made in the good economy. So privacy by architecture means do not send all these data. Keep it where it doesn't need to be sent. Don't share it where it doesn't need to be shared. Anonymize it where it can, and bring things down to the device layer. While the world of foundational models have been flourishing through LLMs, large language models, and those models require massive data centers, which we do not have on our person. Thus, data needs to be sent away. Small models have also been making great progress, allowing us to do a big chunk of all of this processing on the devices that we have with us without being shared. Incentive alignment is not a technological thing, but it's a business model thing. So if you are not as much of a tech person, but you're building a startup, you're designing a business model, you can think about many different ways in which the money is in being good and in not selling people's data. And the reason for that is by banking on the conscious choice that people do not want to be under surveillance. A case of this, a non-technical but yet valid example of this, I think, is in agricultural trade. A lot of the products, agricultural products imported, in this case, I'm going to take coffee, for example, have concerns about how these coffees farm, how the farmers are being treated, how the workers are being treated. Then a case came out called fair trade, trading it fairly. And fair trade coffee is not higher quality, but it's more expensive. And somehow fair trade boomed because individuals at the end of the day and in the world we live today are informed, and there is a massive market for this. Lastly, it's transparency. There's an inherent transparency issue. So every day when I build AR tools, when I build geospatial tools, and when I work with my design teams in creating objects, we try to make it as real as possible. How do I don't lose the trade-off between that sense of reality? The reality is literally in the name, augmented reality, virtual reality. But how do I not lose that sense while allowing users to distinguish between this? And I think that is mostly done through education. Educating, not in the sense of the education system, but educating the user in the form of culture building. So people understand before they using it rather consciously. So I vaguely talked about this and we mentioned the pillars, but what does the first pillar, privacy preserving architecture, means? What I have here for you is how I see it being done. And if any of you have used the PIC technology, the next layer of PIC technology, the next phase of it, which we're going to release in a few months, and it's actually a patent pending software in the United Kingdom, follows these same pillars. And I'm sharing it with you because I believe in the community growth and I think we can make a difference. Instead of sending raw sensor data to remote servers, privacy-preserving architecture keeps sensitive processing local. Only verified minimal outputs are ever shared. So I try to have as much of the processing to be done on the device rather than on the server. This on its own solves a lot of the problems. And one place to look at this, I think one interesting case of this, sorry, there's some comments, so let me quickly see. Sadly, I do not speak Russian, so I would ask you write for me in English. I'm going to come back to this comment, but to go back on this, one place to look at this and be quite hopeful about the small models is China. While a lot of the Chinese AI companies had difficulty getting access to latest and more powerful processing devices. I'm sure you've been informed about the matters whether NVIDIA can sell certain chips to China or not. The Chinese built small models that can run on smaller processing capabilities with nearly similar results. And this gives hope that on-device processing is then possible. Personally, on our next layer for PICT, we are not using any server processing for the spatial mapping, and that is solely to protect the users. Economical incentive, well, it's also cheaper. I as the company also am not the one who's paying for it. It's the device that's already in your hands. Then going back to the noise method, differential privacy, adding mathematical noise to protect the individuals. Federated learning, models improve without centralized user data. This is also not necessarily to the immersive world, but what has been in line with the anonymization. But this last bit is personally my most hopeful approach in combination with the on-device processing. So while I do say, oh, yes, do not send this data to the cloud, meaning don't share it with the company that is providing the service for the user. But this cannot always be achieved. Even interaction between two users often requires this server data, or interaction with an establishment, the world around us, or if you're talking about smart cities, this needs to exist. The solution for that is within blockchain technology. In blockchain technology, there is a field called zero knowledge proof. And what zero knowledge proof means is verification without identification. That is, in a broad sense, for me to simplify the matter, is, let's say, I want a user to be able to collect a certain digital asset, but I do not share who this user is and their geographical coordinate. It is in the sense of an algorithmic to say if this, again, very simplified case, that's not actually how it works, but if this coordinate and that asset correlate, then what is the next action? That proof is then sent to a multi-signature protocol on the device, then it gets the result whether that function should behave in one way or another. Just before I proceed, the comment that was shared, if you want to write it in English, I'll be very happy to address it. So the next pillar was transparent reality layer. In an augmented world, users must always know what is real and what has been placed there, and by whom. Transparency is the foundation of informed consent in immersive environment. So we're continuously having a blurred line between this reality. And let us break this down into what is real, what is not, who has placed it. The author of the assets often can reveal to a conscious user the intent behind it. Do I trust this or do I not trust it? That is, well, based on the object or the function itself, but also based on who's done it. Do these people have a malicious track record or not? What is the core competency of the author, and how then this can allow me to identify it as useful or harmful? And lastly, for the user to be able to have an understanding of why it appears here. Regulators have been working on this last pillar. So in your social media, you can see why you're seeing a certain advertisement, and the companies by regulators have been forced to give explanation. Now, once this comes in to the line of blurred reality, it becomes ever more important for you to understand it. And by understanding it, then you can invoke rights such as the right to be forgotten or for your data to be removed, and thus affecting the algorithms. Without transparency, augmented reality becomes an invisible manipulation layer, indistinguishable from the real world. And last part, which I think first part was on how to build. Second part was in terms of being frank and transparent. And the last part is, but how do we, we build these technologies for greater good, sure, but we also want to make money. So how do we come up with business models that incentivizes people to build in that way? But also, if a user is sharing this data, how are they being incentivized? Before I go into this, I want to refer back to the Stephen Paul analogy. If you're driving in a highway, and I know you have these in Almaty, there are billboards. Do you choose to see the billboard? No. Is there financial utility being derived from the billboard? Yes. Why? On one side is the attention pool of the audience. Does the audience get anything for it? No. So how can we also include the audience, at least in this system? And just as a food for thought, in a world where, a little off topic, but in a world where we are discussing universal income, the right and the royalty of your data becomes extremely valuable. So in traditional models, users contribute interaction, data, and attention. All value flows to platforms. An alternative, and hopefully the model for future, value would flow back to the people who are creating this pool of data. Tokenized ecosystem, reward system, and cooperative data governance, rethinking who benefits. Users generate enormous value through their interaction, data, and attention. And today, all of that is received by the big companies providing those services. Tokenized ecosystems provide an alternative. Users earn stake in the value their data generates. Again, for those of you who are thinking about building startups, that right there, huge industry to look at. And then cooperative governance, communities co-own and set rules for how their data is used. I know this keynote is about artificial intelligence, but for those of you interested, there is massive blockchain opportunities in integrating the two for including the incentives for the user. Just a reference to that would be looking at DAO, decentralized autonomous organizations, as a mean for a protocol to then decide about how their data is used, and as a mean for people to have a voice, but also be a collective, so that together we are loud enough to make a difference. So what is a responsible development framework for this? This is obviously a suggested look at this. The existing frameworks, in my opinion, as someone who operates in the United Kingdom, the headquarters of PICT is in London. We operate under the AI Act. We operate under the GDPR. I think is not enough. So my proposal for this, and my suggestion to you as founders, future builders, is to map sensor data flow, know what is collected and where it goes, minimize data collection, collect only what is necessary, define harm scenarios, identify risk before building, and independent audits, external verification of compliance and safety. If you have published an app on App Store or Google Play, it does ask you what personal data you collect. It does ask you if you can operate without collecting it. So on top of all of this, the question becomes on the derived data, which I think is the main concern, and earlier on we discussed about by movement biometrics as forms of identification. There are already AI risk management frameworks. There are companies that are using AI to monitor other AIs. It is very early in the days. If this is your jam, huge opportunity. The market is there for it. More people are building than looking at the risk of it. So if you have a solution and if you can validate your solution, there is a huge market for that. Also, there are major government incentives that can help you take it to the next stage. And the AI Act also talks about risk categories, classifies AI system by risk level. This falls also into the allowing users to make conscious choice. So again, I am talking to you about ethical development, but I am also telling you there's money to be made. So the choice is not as binary as I've put it here, obviously, but it's for you to look at and say, okay, we manipulate and extract as much as we can, or we empower the individuals. My 10 years as a serial entrepreneur and founder has been building companies on the idea of empowering individuals and communities. I suggest that as a founder, you guys also take a look at this, because also, even if you want to look at it economically, if the individuals demise and lose their power over time, the economy as we know it will fade away and the entire thing will turn into an oligarchy, which again is not the topic of this keynote, but you can imagine what that leads to. Builders shape the future. So this is why I think this keynote makes a difference, because even if one person will think today and say, I will build differently, we are making that difference. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, I suggest you look at things like the Tech for Good movement and the ways in which we are all reacting to this future that we're building, not just economically, but socially. The future will be immersive and it will be intelligent. The question is, does it empower or does it take the agency away from individuals? Key references in this discussion is here. I will share this later, so if anyone is interested, they can have this presentation. And just to go add a little note, since I have mentioned PICT several times, what we do at PICT is a activation layer, a gamified interaction layer, similar to Pokemon Go, but instead of winning Pokemon, people would interact with brands. And we've done this with different events, with different brands. To give references from Kazakhstan, we have helped Kairat increase loyalty among certain fans and create gamifications, not just in the 90 minutes of football, but to distribute tickets. We have done one with Red Bull events. I don't remember exactly the artist who was performing. We've done it with Burger King, and people go around, interact in this gamified world where advertisement, as I said, is no longer, play together, explore the city, and as the incentive, win in the process. Thank you so much for listening to this. Please shoot me with any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. If you have any question, you can write it in the chat. I think there is no question. So thank you so much. It was really interesting lecture. I think that it was interesting for our participants too. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your information. Yeah, it's very amazing info. And now I want to, yep, Sabina, can you start the presentation of Red Bull Basement?
Yes, sure. First of all, just wanted to say sincerely thank you, Mr. Abtin, for your presentation. It was extremely interesting for me to know about all the AI, AR tools in the world, and I think it was also very helpful for like the startups because it is a core initiative for like creating your business and create your startup. So thank you very much. I appreciate your cooperation, your support, your time, and sharing all the experience as an industry leader from this sphere. Yes.
Thank you.
I think that if students will have questions, you can write it down here. Если у кого-то будут вопросы, пожалуйста, задавайте. Вам обязательно в процессе или после мы ответим. So I think I will share my presentation about the Red Bull Basement in Russian. And maybe if you have any questions also about our project, I will be happy to answer about it. So let me share my screen. Oh no. Oh, I don't know why it's denied for me. Диана, я могу тебя скинуть презентацию?
Вообще, по идее, можешь ее транслировать.
Не открывается. Deny.
Abtin, can you close your presentation?
Maybe it's because of this. I don't know.
Yeah, because Sabina can't show her presentation for us.
Is it fixed?
Let me try one more time. Oh no, I think this is because of my laptop.
1 minute.
It doesn't allow me. Please, Diana, help me and show the presentation. So this is a student project in our Red Bull company. We have like special several projects during the whole time, like Red Bull Basement. Before we had Red Bull Tetris also for students. So now it's the project is related for startups, for young entrepreneurs, for students, for everyone who is very interested in like in technologies, in software, and in artificial intelligence. So that is why I'm telling that your like the information that you shared is very useful, will be very useful when they will start to create their idea and startup. That is why I also used picked tried to use it when I was student also. It was very interesting because it started as a Pokemon Go, and then it was very hyped in Almaty as a picked. Yeah.
Thank you.
Окей. Расскажу про Red Bull Basement. Это, получается, у нас студенческий проект, нацеленный на молодое такое поколение. В целом он как бы для всех открыт, но мы больше позиционируем его как студенческий проект. Это AI-платформа. Можно дальше. Получается... Так, можно дальше. Слоган данного проекта звучит как «Всего одна идея может повлиять на мир». И на самом деле так и есть, потому что Red Bull дает вам возможность реализовать вашу идею, которая зародилась у вас в стадии, то есть идеи, когда еще вы не создали свой стартап, вы только придумали какое-то решение в любой сфере, это может быть медицина, образование, не знаю, любые платформы, любые сферы. Главная идея. Если она у вас есть, то вы можете ее реализовать, и в этом вам поможет Red Bull. Что же такое Red Bull? Это глобальный инкубатор для молодых и талантливых новаторов, который помогает запускать свой самый первый проект и превратить самые смелые идеи в инновационные решения. Конечно же, при помощи искусственного интеллекта, современных технологий, менторства, ну и да, искусственного интеллекта. Чем же в целом, из чего состоит в целом эта программа? Как мы вдохновляем всех новаторов по всему миру? Здесь у нас будет три части, то есть из которых состоит сама программа. В первую очередь Red Bull Basement — это глобальная инициатива по развитию инноваций. То есть Red Bull, он дает площадку, он дает возможность создавать свои идеи в жизнь. И идеи, они должны быть нацелены на позитивные изменения той или иной сфере. Во вторую очередь Red Bull Basement — это сильный нетворкинг, это менторская поддержка. То есть проект дает широкий доступ к возможностям для нетворкинга, для сотрудничества и к воркшопам с экспертными-менторами. Например, как сейчас, да, мы послушали эксперты из данной сферы, взяли какие-то инсайты и сможем с этой информацией уже приступать к созданию идей и своего стартапа. В третью очередь это технологические решения для позитивных изменений. Как я уже сказала, Red Bull Basement — это проект, который нацелен на изменение тех или иных вещей в ключевом, то есть в позитивном ключе. При помощи, самое главное, это технологии. Поэтому здесь мы очень поддерживаем стремление к инновациям, где идея может оказать значимое влияние на мир. Пройдемся по таймлайну, то у нас осталось буквально 6 дней, включая сегодняшний день, потому что прием заявок заканчивается 15 марта. 15 марта — это у нас воскресенье, и в воскресенье у нас закрывается подача заявок. Команда может состоять из 2 людей, то есть вы непосредственно можете создать свою идею либо в одиночку индивидуально, либо в команде из 2. Самый главный критерий — вам должно быть больше 18 лет. И вы должны владеть английским языком. Это очень важный момент, потому что наш национальный, то есть мировой финал будет проходить в Америке, в США, и, соответственно, нужно будет выступать и защищать свою идею, питчить ее перед англоязычной аудиторией. Количество идей не ограничено, то есть вы можете подать 5, либо 1, либо 10 идей. Далее у нас будет предварительный отбор, как раз-таки со следующей недели. Из всего количества заявок, которые мы получим, мы отберем топ-20 команд, топ-20 идей, которые покажутся на самом деле реализуемыми, креативными, инновационными. И в основе его должен лежать искусственный интеллект, либо платформы и технологии. Далее из топ-20 команд у нас топ-10 приглашаются на национальный финал. Национальный финал у нас будет проходить в городе Шымкент в рамках Digital Казахстан 27 марта, то есть буквально 2 недели, 2-3 недели. Далее у нас идет после национального финала 2 месяца дается на реализацию идеи. Этот этап посвящен воплощению идеи в жизнь, где вы будете прорабатывать свой проект более углубленно и подготовитесь к мировому финалу. Вишенка на торте — это у нас мировой финал, который пройдет в США, в Силиконовой долине, с ведущими экспертами, которые помогут вам вывести ваш стартап на новый уровень. Путь завершится событием таким как Final Pitch, как раз-таки, где вы запитчите свою идею перед судьями, и будет озвучен главный победитель 2026 года. Процесс отбора. Из чего же он состоит? Первый этап — это у нас описание идеи. Вы можете зайти на сайт и подать заявку. Там у вас будет 2 выбора. Либо вы сами подгружаете свою уже существующую идею, либо вам помогает AI-ассистент, который находится у нас на сайте. Он поможет вам, то есть он задаст вам определенные вопросы, и далее тем самым выведет определенную идею. Вы можете ее подредактировать, либо загрузить таким образом. Далее второй этап, как я уже сказала, это видео-пич, где нужно будет загрузить минутное видео с презентацией вашего проекта. И третий этап — это у нас национальный финал, который пройдет в Шымкенте. Топ-10 команд будут очно защищать свой проект перед судьями. Здесь у нас вышел, я увидела вопрос, отвечу на него сразу. Именно судьями на национальном финале списком мы поделимся на сайте. У нас на redbullbasement.com будет обязательно список наших судей, кто будет в судейской панели и оценивать именно топ-10 финалистов. Соответственно, выберет национальную команду победителей, которая полетит в Америку. Этот список будет скоро опубликован у нас на сайте, поэтому просим активно следить за ним. Угу. Да, как я уже сказала, подача заявок у нас супер легкая, вообще все максимально просто. Здесь вы можете увидеть submit your idea or brainstorm together. То есть вы можете засубмитить свою уже существующую идею, либо если у вас нет, брейнштормите идею с искусственным интеллектом. Он вам задает вопросы, вы просто отвечаете на него, и он вам далее выдает идею, которую можно будет запичить и уже защитить. То есть процесс подачи заявок максимально простой. Единственное, мы просим избегать sensitive топики, которые искусственный интеллект может не пропустить. То есть это темы, связанные с детьми, то есть до 18 лет, да, либо любые политические и социально острые темы он может не пропустить просто-навсего. Угу. Какой вызов ты готов принять? То есть у нас есть идея, или даже у нас ее нет, но в какой же сфере мы хотим создать эту идею, или в какой сфере мы хотим подумать о каком-то решении, которое могло бы улучшить нашу жизнь. И здесь вы видите список этих сфер, то есть максимально все очень широко. У вас есть большой выбор. Здесь вы можете описать идею касательно образования, здоровья, здравоохранения, экономики, умный город, устойчивое развитие. Достаточно широкий спектр, на который вы можете описать свою идею. Угу. Можно дальше. Так, мировой финал. Мировой финал у нас будет проходить в Стэнфорд Университи на мировой сцене в США. Здесь у нас, получается, была выбрана неспроста, наверное, такая точка для мирового финала. Угу. Можно дальше. Потому что, мне кажется, все-таки Кремниевая долина является таким центром, глобальным инновационным хабом всего мира технологий. Здесь у нас находятся самые лучшие университеты мира, историческая точка, ну и в целом это такой, мне кажется, уже всеми известное место для всех инноваций. Вот. Так, дальше. По программе мирового финала. Финал будет проходить в Сан-Франциско непосредственно в начале июня, то есть это 1-3 июня. При этом, пройдя в национальный финал, компания Red Bull полностью поможет вам с визами, с приглашением, со всей логистикой. И программа у нас будет состоять таким образом, что первые 2 дня это у нас подготовка, менторские сессии, нетворкинг. Нашими глобальными партнерами являются Microsoft и AMD. У вас будут экспертные ваши сессии, где вы сможете задать все ваши вопросы, отработать, отточить вашу презентацию, ваш питч. И на 3-й день это у нас будет уже презентация, и топ-10 питчей будут защищаться на главной сцене. Угу. Что же у нас все-таки получит наш мировой призер? Он получает у нас кэш. Это $100 000 в виде финансовые инвестиции на реализацию своего проекта. На самом деле скажу, что такого ранее никогда не было. Всегда были определенные глобальные призы, которые предоставлялись, но именно в таком формате это в первый раз у нас так глобально и масштабно. Следующее это у нас технологические ресурсы. Для проработки у нас получается, выдается 25 тысяч долларов США в виде кредита для Microsoft Azure и кредиты Vibe Coding для продолжения прототипирования и быстрого тестирования ваших идей. И третье, конечно же, это все нетворкинг, это менторство от сильных экспертов своей индустрии. Также в этом году Red Bull, то есть в 2025 году Red Bull открыл свой собственный венчурный фонд, он таки называется Red Bull Ventures. Будет поддержка непосредственная от них также с дальнейшим менторством, если вы придете как глобальный призер. Будет доступ к стратегической экспертизе и практическому опыту по мере перехода от MVP к уже непосредственно к созданию бизнеса. Мгм. И да, у нас заявки принимаются до 15 марта, осталось буквально 6 дней. Очень советую всем пройти, зарегистрироваться, посмотреть, как выглядит сайт. В целом все достаточно просто. Самый такой важный момент, что здесь не нужно иметь уже какой-то действующий стартап, вам не нужно иметь какие-то сильные, знаете, программы, чтобы вы уже взяли и запустили проект в дело. Нет, здесь все начинается с идеи. Мы просто хотим услышать, какая у вас есть идея, насколько она реализуема, насколько она выполнима, насколько она инновационна, насколько такой идеи ранее никогда не было придумано. То есть, да, максимально просто. Поэтому мы очень ждем ваши заявки, очень ждем ваше участие. Если у вас будут, ну то есть вы можете сейчас, конечно, задать вопросы любые, но если будут, да, вопросы дополнительно после нашего воркшопа, можете всегда зайти на наш сайт redbullbasement.com и просмотреть, как там все выглядит. И у нас остался последний слайд, мне кажется, с QR-кодом. Да, я советую сейчас зайти, отсканировать наш QR-код, и уже в моменте, в процессе вы можете регистрироваться. Вот. С моей стороны это все. Кто выигрывал последние 2-3 года? В крайний раз у нас, получается, проект проходил в 2024 году, и именно сам мировой финал победили ребята из Филиппин, если я не ошибаюсь. У них была идея касательно вот agriculture и то, как искусственный интеллект помог в этой сфере. Точно идею не назову, но вот в 2024 году это были ребята из Филиппин. При этом в 2024 году, когда финал проходил в Токио, у нас также летели наши казахстанцы, ребята, которые питчили свою идею перед мировыми представителями международных компаний. Вот. Mr. Abtin, I think there is a question for you regarding PICT.
Please.
Yeah, here's a question in the comments. How's the data of users protecting when they access PICTs and share information such as their location, camera access, and other personal data?
Great question. So as someone who advocates for this privacy protection of users, I think it'd be quite hypocritical if we were collecting this data. But to go into the details, PICT actually does not record any personal information beyond the email that is the username based on. And we do not track the user movement. But rather it is built on the method of proximity. So to tell you a little bit, this is to address the location matter. Pict actually works not on the exact anchoring to a spot, but within a proximity. So if you've ever shared a location through WhatsApp and you've seen sometimes you cannot share the exact location and you get a wider area, that is how Pict sees it. But also we use techniques of anonymizing the individual who is actually there. And what else does it say? Camera access. We do not have access to your camera roll. We get camera access, and that is without capture. So if you had an iPhone, if you have an iPhone, you could see whether it is being recorded or not. And you can see that the SDK on your device, not on our servers, on your device, sees the environment, but it does not share that environment with the Pix servers. Another question. Please let me know if this answers your question or not. I believe I've answered the matter about personal information, location, and camera access. And great. And then there is another question. So the app exists in both Kazakhstan and London. Yes, it also exists in Africa. We operated several events in Lagos, Nigeria. How did it happen is that Pict started off in London as a startup with my two co-founders, and one of our co-founders moved to Kazakhstan to start a branch in Central Asia. And there we worked with a great team led by our good friend Zarina. And the Kazakhstan is actually has been very kind to Pict as a company. Sorry to cut you off. Is it okay? Is there time for me to answer the question? Potential in Cal. My honest answer, since the first time I came to Almaty for Digital Almaty and delivered a keynote there, I have been back to Kazakhstan twice after that. I recommend it to everyone. And this is not just, I'm here amongst Kazakh people, but just to say you're good people and you have good food. But I think there is an immense potential, economical potential in Kazakhstan. I see that the society is very eager to adapt to new technologies, and businesses have also been keen on trying experimental methods in which they can interact with their users. So my answer, and regardless of this question, my suggestion to also my other friends have been to explore the Kazakh market for expansion.
So here's also question. How many countries how many countries are participating in this event? So there is 50 countries across the world which participate in Red Bull Basement. Yes. Microsoft, AMD и Red Bull становятся инвесторами. Окей, а своими инвестициями они забирают какую-либо долю будущего бизнеса в случае победы. Ну, то есть, получается, Red Bull, он сам проводит это мероприятие, как отдельный его ивент Red Bull Basement, и глобальными партнерами являются Microsoft и AMD. На глобальном уровне я не смогу сказать, какое партнерство было, сотрудничество было оговорено между глобальным, да, HQ Red Bull и Microsoft и AMD, но выделяется именно сумма в $100 тысяч от непосредственно от Red Bull. Далее, в случае победы, честно, не смогу здесь вам подсказать, так как пока что такой информации нет, но я так полагаю, что нет. Есть ли еще вопросы? I think that there is no questions. Oh, Rahmet sizge in Kazakh. They're writing in Kazakh. Thank you. Предотбор через искусственный интеллект. Нет, у нас предварительный отбор будет сделан вручную командой, экспертной командой, которая будет состоять из, получается, представителей Red Bull HQ, головного офиса, и казахстанского офиса. Люди-аналитики будут смотреть заявки. У нас будут представители, вот как я сказала, получается, с Red Bull Basement, то есть представители головного офиса, headquarters, которые сидят в Австрии. При их поддержке будут отобраны также заявки. То есть непосредственно сторонних аналитиков мы не будем привлекать. Можно ли участвовать, если ты не студент? Да, можно. В целом это мероприятие, проект для всех, не только для студентов. This is the project is not only for students, it's like for everyone who just interested in that project. So anyone can participate.
I would like to add a note about time to incubation, if that's okay. I want to encourage and say it has never been as doable to launch a startup. It has never been as possible. Before, getting to a product and an MVP used to be difficult because it needed a technical team, and anybody who has experience developing technical products knows deadlines are never met.
Yeah, for sure.
Today, with the help of AI, this happens extremely fast. With the help of AI, content production is easy. With the help of AI, outreach is easy. So if you have a dream, if you have a big plan, a goal, and a mission and a vision, all you need, and I'm not saying this to hype up incubation, but all you need is a little bit of guidance from a few mentors to tell you and push you, and a few months of dedicated focus to have something to show for.
Сейчас стартап, который выиграл именно мировой, если вы про мировой, то я не смогу сказать, но национальный финалист, который у нас с Казахстана победил, они до сих пор действуют, и они разработали с 2024 года, его улучшили. Таким образом, они сейчас в поиске инвесторов, чтобы продать в целом проект. Вот, интересный случай. Получается, в 2024 году также из топ-10 финалистов команды, которая не победила национальный финал, но в жюри сидели инвесторы, которые заинтересовались одним из проектов. Таким образом, они вложили в него тоже более 50, даже около 100 тысяч долларов в развитие проекта. Эти участники не были победителями, но инвестор ими заинтересовался. На нашем национальном финале также будут международные компании, инвесторы, очень крупные казахстанские, поэтому, так как финал у нас будет в рамках Digital Казахстан, в рамках вот это как раз Digital Алматы, который был в прошлом, Сейчас это Digital Казахстан. В рамках него мы будем проводить национальный финал. I'm just saying that you mentioned about Digital Almaty, right? That you participated in it before. So now we're organizing our national final. So we integrated into the Digital Kazakhstan. Its previous Digital Almaty was. So our national final will be integrated in that event in Shymkent. So in 2 weeks. Yeah.
That is very interesting.
Yes.
I have had the pleasure of being both to Almaty and Shymkent to speak at I came to Digital Almaty to speak on AI and entertainment, and in Shymkent I spoke again about privacy for another event, and I think for any of the guys who here are taking this chance, the biggest thing today is to get in front of people and present. And why, if anyone asks me why do you want to be, why should you go to an incubator, is because incubator at the end of this journey helps guides you through what to do and then puts you in front of people to tell the world, hey, this is what I have built.
Yes. Totally. So I think that's all, because I see that there is no questions, but I think that guys, everyone who is here, if you have a questions, you can check our you can check our website. You can please download the app Picked. It's very interesting. Just like try to see how it was created, like how it works, and it's very like I think it's really just to understand the potential of AR. It's insane. So yes, thank you very much again. It was a pleasure to listen to you, to hear you, to gain some knowledge, and it was very useful.
Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting this keynote. And also, if anyone has any questions about privacy in the world of immersive AI, feel free to email me, and I'm more than happy to share what scent I might have on the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting lecture. Thank you for the information. And thank you for you, Sabina. Большое спасибо всем участникам. Давайте еще раз там можно написать в чат. Спасибо нашему сегодняшнему приглашенному спикеру. Я считаю, что информация, которая прозвучала сегодня, была очень полезной и очень нужной. И спасибо отдельно представителям Red Bull Basement за организацию данного мероприятия, за привлечение партнеров и за презентацию еще раз программы, потому что, правда, срок у нас подходит, и есть ребята, которые нас еще не слышали. Поэтому большое спасибо, Сабина. Thank you so much, Abtin. So, see you the next time. See you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye.
Have a good day too. Bye bye.